Hi, this is Steve Kime, and welcome to City Connections. This is our special edition where we take time to give you an update on the Call Lake Water Supply Project, all dealing with the pipeline. Two familiar gentlemen to my left, you've seen them once before, Michael Graves from Garver, and also we have Chris Gdanski, the Director of Engineering, that will be with us, or excuse me, the Director of Engineering here at the City of Enid. And these two fine gentlemen will be my guests today as we provide you an update on the Call Lake Water Supply Project. And again, it's all about the 70-plus mile pipeline. So gentlemen, welcome back. It's been several months, but I know people, when I see them out in the public, they're always wanting an update. They want to know progress, and they want to know what's going on. Well, one of our first slides, it talks about we are here, and that's in the middle of the slide. Here we are. It's hard to imagine. It's December 2018, and we're already going to move into 2019 before we know it. But Chris, let's start with you in Phase 1. Can you just kind of remind everybody what Phase 1 was all about?
Well, as you recall, the Commission asked us to determine what it would take to get 50 years worth of water here in Enid to secure our water future. And so what we did with Phase 1 is we looked at all the alternatives that were available to us in terms of pipe size, pipe routing, water treatment, how to get the water here, what we would do to interface that water with the rest of the existing system, and then of course blending.
I'm really excited about having Michael and Chris with us today because we'll talk a little bit about the pipeline, the land that it has to cover, and really more details as this project develops. And we're just excited that progress continues to be made. And Michael, this may not be a huge project to you, or it may be a large one compared to all the background work you've done. But in Phase 2, can you talk us through what did we get done in Phase 2?
Sure, Steve, and it certainly is a big project for me. This is those once in a lifetime type of projects to get an opportunity to work on. Not necessarily because of the size of the program, but just because it has almost every element of a drinking water supply that you could possibly have on a project, and that's pretty exciting to get an opportunity to lead. The Phase 2 services kind of kicked off right after we finished up some of the conceptual development that Chris mentioned in Phase 1. Where we took those concepts for a full 50-year build-out, and we identified the preliminary engineering that would be necessary. And that was a very critical step so that the city could see what that project looked like in the year 2072. And then we had to make some tough decisions. We had to decide what was affordable to the community. And the commission and the city manager and the city engineer and the director of engineering did a really good job of working with us to define affordability. And then we had to go back to work and narrow down that 50-year project to an affordable project. And that was a phasing plan that we developed as part of Phase 2. In addition to some of the engineering that's been ongoing in Phase 2, there's been a tremendous amount of agency coordination, land acquisition activities, prepping for the acquisition of property and easements. And so just quite a bit behind the scenes in addition to the engineering effort.
So here we are in Phase 3, and as you see on the screen, it talks about environmental permitting and also bid documents, final design, the land acquisition. Phase 3 compared to Phase 1 and 2, is it twice the size? Is it a huge chunk of the project? What do you think, gentlemen?
Well, it's about the same size, but it's kind of a different scope of work, if you will. What we're doing now is we're taking that preliminary engineering that we finished in Phase 2, and we're taking that to a point where it is in a bid-ready format. It's ready for the construction to commence, or at least the bids to be taken at the completion of Phase 3. Now, again, there's a lot going on behind the scenes besides the final design component. There's a lot of, again, land acquisition activities, permitting procedures, things of that nature that continue to support the program in addition to the engineering.
I want to back up for just a moment. I probably should have done this at the outset. But Michael, if you would, can you just kind of give us just a brief statement, synopsis, what Garver's all about and really their role in this project, just to remind people that may have forgotten.
Well, no, that's okay. Thank you for that opportunity. Garver's, we're going to be celebrating our 100th year of doing business as a civil engineering firm in 2019, and as you might expect, we're pretty excited about that. But we do all types of consulting engineering work for particularly municipalities like the city of Enid, a lot of state government and federal government work, and some private clients. But specifically for this project, we are serving as the program manager. And so we are essentially an extension of the city of Enid staff. You can only imagine the amount of manpower that's necessary to execute a program of this magnitude that encompasses, some 70 miles as far as a project footprint goes. And the city of Enid just doesn't have the staff to take on that additional workload. And so you could envision us as working in parallel with the city's program manager, Chris Gdanski, just an extension of that engineering staff.
And Chris, the role as Director of Engineering, your department, I know are rubbing shoulders with Garver each and every minute of the day, if you will, but could you sum up basically your role as the engineering department?
As the Director of Engineering and the program manager for this program, I'm the one who's responsible for executing it. My staff and I have planned it. We've laid it out. We've developed the preliminary budgets. We acquired the services of a program management team that we really needed to finish it. And then now we will be responsible for executing it.
As we move on to our next slide, both of you touched on years ago, it seems like, certainly months ago, when you were presented with this challenge. Okay, let's look in the crystal ball, 50 years down the road, where we're going to get our water. And it's amazing, the individuals that I talk to across the state, they have no idea that Enid draws water to put in their bathtub that came 40-some miles away in the ground. They're used to a Grand Lake, a 10-Keller, and the lakes go on, They just can't imagine all this water comes out of a water well, if you will. So if we look at this particular chart right here, we talks about some capacity, and who wants to kind of talk us through this? It looks like Enid is on the move to grow, is what it looks like.
Let me lay the groundwork of this. Long before we decided that call was the right answer, we did a water supply study. We looked at, can we afford to build a lake here? And the answer really is no, you can't. And then there's the environmental permitting that would have been a challenge. And then it doesn't really rain all that much over here in Enid. And then we looked at expanding the well field, and we settled on going to Kaw Lake. And what we used this chart for is this chart showed us that at our maximum use capacity in the past, if you projected what we anticipate growth to be, which is not that much, that's how much water we're thinking we're going to have 50 years out.
And we're fortunate that we have the opportunity to go to Kaw Lake. In my narrow-minded opinion, that it's good that we have that option.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Because we need to remind everybody the water well fields will probably always be there, but it's almost like the left hand could be pulling from those and the right hand from Kaw Lake. Both are going to kind of be up and running at the same time, correct?
And we'll be blending the water together. And everybody will have the same water. It'll get blended at one point before it goes into our distribution system. After we determined that the 50-year supply design was going to be way more than what we really could afford and probably more than what we needed to build right now, what we did is we overlaid this slide with our current usage and continued with the projected growth. And so that's what we're building to. We designed a system with a capacity to reach what we thought we would ever need, but we're only building what we have to have.
And again, one of those challenges to look forward into that crystal ball to say, okay, how much rain we're going to get, how much is the population, how much the industrial growth, things of this nature. There's so many variables to come up with that particular number. Well, we move on to the pipe construction methods, and Michael, I had the privilege to attend a meeting here recently. They kind of got into some of the details of this 70-some mile pipeline, and we have two charts that we want to show everyone. You can pick one of those if you will, but if you could, what are some of the challenges of a pipeline? It's 70-some miles. I think we've got an interstate in the way.
Yeah, we do.
And there may be some streets, some highways.
We absolutely do have a few challenges between point A and point B, Kaw Lake and the city of Enid, but certainly not challenges that we haven't addressed or the construction industry hasn't addressed in the past. There will be a handful of river crossings, stream crossings. Those construction techniques will typically be where we bore underneath those streams and rivers to keep from disturbing the activity in those streams. There'll also be certain highways and an interstate, of course, I-35, that we will bore underneath to minimize disruption and traffic associated with that. But for the most part, what I think the community will see in the surrounding areas will be delivery of large amounts of pipe, and you can see in the slide there where we have an offloading scenario where we're unloading pipe that has been delivered to a site. You're also seeing that the typical construction method and what will predominate on this pipeline will be what we call an open trench type scenario, where we have a long trench with the dirt that's excavated sitting on one side of the trench, and we have the pipe that is to be installed, coupled together or welded together depending upon the material on the other side of the trench.
And can you remind our viewers as we look at this pipeline, and in the top left photo that you'll see a pipe there, but we notice that the end is closed off. Mm-hmm. I guess that's all for keeping things clean. I mean, to me, a pipe is a pipe, and you've got this thing kind of taped off at the end. Yeah. I guess that's the way things are done.
That's a really good question. We do our best, and the manufacturer of the pipe material actually does this to help preserve the integrity of the pipe during delivery and during installation. And so in addition to what looks like a cap, it's just a protective coating there, there's some material up inside the pipe that is also protecting the integrity of the pipe during transportation and installation, and that material is removed once the pipe is installed.
On the slide before us, it looks like, well, you can see how tall this one gentleman is. He's probably at least 6 foot, so that's a 5-foot pipe at least. We're talking, what are the dimensions of our pipe? Chris, can you answer that?
We're going with 36-inch diameter pipe.
Okay.
That's what we feel will give us the capacity we need for now and in the future.
You don't want a 12-inch pipe, right? You say, oh man, if we had only made this thing bigger, we wouldn't have to go back to do that. And again, I keep sharing that with everybody to really reinforce the challenge it is for you all, if you will, to look forward to say, okay, we want to do this one time, we want to do it right. What's the pipe size that we need to look down the road?
Oh, absolutely.
Very detailed pipeline sizing optimization was done in phase 2 to help, for 2 reasons. One, to make sure we had enough capacity to meet that projected future demand, but also not to oversize the pipe, not to get into a situation where we had too much material and we're paying for too much material. And so we found that happy medium, and it's optimized. And it's not just the size of the pipe, it's the size of the pump that's putting water in the pipe that goes into that optimization evaluation. So,
if you look at some of these examples, and again, these aren't necessarily ideal for our particular situation, but some of these pipes, gentlemen, they do not look like they're buried very deep. What would be, if you could speak to the Call Lake pipeline, if you will, what would you say the average depth would be? Or is there a rule of thumb or state law or anything that comes in and say, hey, this has got to be buried X amount of feet?
There are certainly some guidelines that we'll adhere to, but generally from the top of the pipe to the ground surface, we want to be about 3 or 4 feet deep. And in some cases, it'll be much deeper than that. Coming out from underneath those river bores and those highway bores, it'll be a lot deeper than that. But in most cases, we want to be well below any normal, farming activities or truck traffic and things of that nature. And usually 3 to 4 feet will accommodate that.
When the city of Enid extended the pipeline from the wastewater plant out to Coke Nitrogen, it was this hard plastic, I say plastic, but it was hardcore, heavy-duty plastic black pipe. And I guess that works for shorter distance, and then it was probably 20-some inches, I'm not sure. What are some, I guess, ingredient options? Are we talking all concrete? Are we talking all steel? What kind of options do we have? And does the 70 miles make a difference in that strength?
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is yes, and yes, and yes.
Okay.
We're still evaluating multiple materials. We have some time to do that.
I have you down as a yes. Okay.
There's a lot of market influences that have an impact on material pricing, and so we're paying close attention to that. And ultimately, that decision will be made from a a life cycle standpoint. You know, there's not just the upfront capital cost of the pipe material itself, but there's the operation and maintenance cost. Will the city staff be able to maintain the type of material cost effectively that we end up choosing? And so that decision has yet to be made. There's still a couple of different pipe materials that are in play.
When we look at this, is one of my favorite slides. It talks about the pipeline segments, and as you can see, there's a little bit different color coded, and it may be close to 8 segments. I'm not sure, but we're talking all the way to the west side of Call Lake, to really almost the west side of Enid, because sometimes we forget about this. It's a little bit more than a pipeline. We have a new water treatment plant that's going to be North Enid, if you will, to help blend everything together. So it's not just this pipe running from point A to point B to our bathtubs. Can you kind of talk about these different segments? I'm often asked, gentlemen, are you going to start at Enid and go east, or is it go west, young man, go west? I go, well, as soon as I find the guys, I'll ask them. So here's your chance to.
Obviously, we'll start in the design process over at the lake and come this way to Enid. When we get ready to do construction staging, that will depend a lot on pipe delivery and our pipe material selection. So what we're talking about is the logistics management of all that material being in the right place at the right time, so the contractors can get it in the ground and weld it up if it's steel, or join it up if it's concrete.
Michael, you may be able to address this issue on the intake. I just had a quick question, if you would remind our viewers that have been following the 4 or 5 interviews that we've done. The intake structure is not on the side of Call Lake. It's actually in the lake, correct?
Yeah,
can you kind of share with us?
Sure, Steve. There's actually a combination of both, and we went through an evaluation of multiple different types of intake structures before the city and Garver decided on what type we would go with. A couple of things that drove that decision were, one, we didn't want to have any visible structures out in the water. The city did not want to restrict the use of the lake in any way. There's a lot of good neighbors that we're going to have
Sure.
in the Call Lake area, and so we didn't want any structures out in the water, visible in the water. And so what we have is a tunnel that goes out underneath the surface of the water, and then a pipe manifold at different elevations to withdraw the water back through that tunnel and then over to the bank. Now at the bank, there will be a very deep shaft that goes down into the ground and collects that water out of the tunnel, and within that deep shaft will be multiple pumps to pull the water out of that shaft and then deliver it to the 36-inch pipeline, which will then be conveyed to the west side of Enid.
Has there been any thought on the timeline and when the water is there to Chris's shower? Two days, 2 hours, or what? 2 months?
I know a guy on our team that can answer that question, but I'm not that guy.
Because I know somebody's watching and go, you know what, Mary? I just wonder how long that water is going to take to get here. So, well,
next time we meet, let's talk about that.
Chris, you have a great map, and it's floor to ceiling map of the pipeline segments. Can you remind us how many counties this is, and
Garfield, Kay, Noble, and Osage.
Okay.
We're covering quite a few of them. You know, obviously the segments are put in manageable sizes for both construction and design work, and that's important to us so that we save a little bit of that schedule risk by making them manageable.
Besides the pipeline, you have X amount of property owners, pastures, wheat fields, buffalo, cattle, you name it, pheasant, it's all out there. And let's talk a little bit about this easement acquisition. Can you kind of just tell us, Michael, what the process is all about?
Yeah, so most of the surrounding community and landowners are very familiar with this process, having oil and gas industry very prevalent in this part of the state. But we will be meeting with landowners to hear their concerns. We have met with several landowners to hear their concerns about the project, and then in an attempt to address those concerns, but yet still have access to the pipeline during construction and ultimately the long-term operation of it. The city will be acquiring easements on those properties There'll also be some, like Chris mentioned earlier, we'll have to take delivery on the pipe, and so there'll be some areas where we need to acquire some easements to store that pipe. And so it's a very lengthy process that we have embarked upon, and I'm glad to report that it's been met with great success so far.
And I agree with you that here in Oklahoma, I think farmers or people in the rural areas, they're used to power lines going by or gas lines going by. They've been there and done that, so they're used to that as well. Well, we're getting close to our final slides. And the reason I wanted to look at this, it talks about 2021 and 2022. When you look at this, Chris, I'll ask you first, when you look at this, does it just remind you the magnitude, how big this process is? And oh my word, it's 2019 around the corner.
Yes. The magnitude of the program, what we have left to do, and the duration that is not really that long. Because we've got 12 months of design work, 2 years of construction, and we got to be running.
Michael, I was going to ask, with the purple on that final design from 2019 to 2021, can you kind of explain to us what that is, that segment? Because that's several months there.
Sure. You know, there's 11 different infrastructure elements that are a part of this program. We have 8 segments of the pipeline, and then we have the intake pump station and intake structure. We have the water treatment plant, and then we have a distribution main that connects back to the city system. There's going to be a lot of design effort involved in those 11 different pieces of infrastructure, and so we'll be bringing on some partners, some new partners to the program. There will be final design consultants that will execute the plan production associated with those 11 different projects. We will oversee that plan production as your program manager to ensure that those final design consultants are adhering to the program standards, the specifications that we developed as part of Phase 2 in the preliminary design.
I'm not a math major, but that looks like, 2+ years maybe in construction?
Yeah, about 2. Yep.
And the commissioning part is what? Can you just kind of share? Somebody's looking at that and said, what's that last little bar, commissioning?
Well, that's a critical component of the program. I mean, that's kind of the last step to make sure that that this program can be stood up and operated as it was intended during the design phase. And so this is training for the Enid staff on the operations and of the equipment. This is a demonstration of the new pumping and the new treatment processes, and that they are meeting their design intent. It's ultimately where the rubber meets the road, if you will, on these programs. Will the system actually deliver the quality and the volume of water that it was anticipated to deliver?
I want to give you both an opportunity for closing comments. And Chris, I'm going to start with you as Director of Engineering for the City of Enid. Can you just kind of summarize where things are at within your department and how things are going? Folks who want to know, hey, I sure hope things are going according to plan.
Well, actually, they are going according to plan, and we're fairly much on schedule. We've requested proposals from the design consultants. We ended up receiving 18 of them, and we're in the process of reviewing those. We will select the best qualified consultant for the individual piece, and then we will take those, not all at once, but the first ones to the commission probably in the late January timeframe for contract award, and then several shortly thereafter.
And Michael, your opportunity here as we close this out, is there any kind of a summary statement that you just want to provide the viewers, maybe something that we didn't touch on in one of the slides that you need to let the viewer know that, hey, we're moving forward?
Well, hey, we definitely are moving forward. There's a lot of fuel in the tank, so to speak, still to be burned on this program, and we're just excited to be a part of it and a partner with the City of Enid and its citizens in helping them solve their long-term water supply needs. You know, I guess if you take a step back and you look at what Enid is doing for Oklahoma, and particularly for Northwest Oklahoma, I would not be surprised if we as a community don't start receiving some statewide and maybe even some national attention for some of the vision and some of the decisions that have been made by this community to reach out and secure their water supply future. It's pretty impressive.
I think it's already beginning, because in some of my work I get to travel a little bit around the state, and people have all 4 eyes, both eyes, on this project, because they want to see how Enid is pulling this off. And so people are watching.
Good.
And again, overall, Yes, this is a City of Enid Call Lake Water Supply project, and you hear Enid quite a bit in this, but this is kind of a north central, northwest Oklahoma project, and once it's complete, it will be a big deal. Well, gentlemen, I know you're very busy, and I appreciate your time today. It's been several months since we sat down to provide everybody an update, but thank you for coming to the studios today and keeping us updated. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Our special guest today, to my immediate left, Michael Graves from Garver, and also the City of Enid Director of Engineering, Chris Gdanski, as we provided you an update with just a handful of slides on the Call Lake Water Supply Pipeline project. Hope that was informative to you. And again, we look forward in a few months. We'll give you a little bit update, and we'll move a little bit further down on that bar graph that we had. So again, thank you for joining us today on City Connections. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day.